Witches, wizards, dark lords, and muggles. Welcome to another edition of the Triple C. That is comics, cosplay, and cinema. My name is Jake. You guys know me as the Foggy Knight, and joining me is always the headmaster himself, Lee Lawson. What's up, man?
What's going on, my friend? I know this is a very exciting episode for you. There's been some exciting news released over the past couple days. I can't wait to dive into it with you, man. I know, you're representing.
I'm representing.
You're representing.
Yeah, let's go for my fellow Hufflepuffs. We're going to talk about the magical world of Harry Potter, the whole wizarding world. We got some exciting news. We got our man Ray back here holding it down as well. Ray, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for this conversation as well.
Let's get to it. First off, we want to say thank you to Nomadic State of Mind for sponsoring this episode. And this episode is also brought to you, obviously, by Morrisette Media. So here we go. So obviously, the world of Harry Potter has turned into one of the biggest franchise worlds in probably the history of history. It's right there kind of with Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, DC, Marvel. And for people that are, my generation, really kind of our version of Star Wars. What I mean by that is I was 11 years old when the first one came out, which just so happened to be the same age as Harry. I grew up, I was almost the same age as the characters throughout the entire, books and film franchise, and grew up with it. And I know that's kind of similar to you with Star Wars and kind of that same experience. Exactly. That it brings extreme nostalgia. You grow up with something and I kind of identify yourself. And now, at the point now we're seeing the original cast, starting having babies and it's starting to make you feel old. But it was an incredible world to grow up with and see it grow. Everything from the movies, obviously the books. We have theme parks, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal, Broadway with the Cursed Child. Yep. And then recently Hogwarts Legacy, the video game aspect, which is blown up. It actually wrecked Twitch. The stream went down because it was the most streamed game ever. So this thing has continued to grow even long after the last book and movie has come out. And they just announced with Warner Brothers, they were going to eye some, bringing Harry back. And they released that they're going to do an HBO Max series. Each season is going to be one of the books. Yep. So we're going to get a full kind of reboot of the Harry Potter franchise. I know, obviously I'm very deep into the Harry Potter world, but what's kind of your rundown with the world and just your thoughts of it in general?
Thoughts of it in general are, I think it's great. It's made a huge impact in a short amount of time. You spoke a lot about how it rivals Star Wars and DC and Marvel and all of that stuff. Yeah, but think about the time. I don't know. The first movie I know was 2001. I don't know if it was the first book 98 maybe. Am I off?
It's around the late 90s.
Late 90s. So relatively short amount of time comparatively speaking to Star Wars, which came out in 77, and DC and Marvel, which have been out for almost 100 years, right? But it's made a much bigger impact than those guys did in such a short amount of time. 2001, 2011 was the run of films. I think it's. I like Harry Potter. I'm into the world. I think I definitely respect it. I'm familiar with the movies. I did not read the books. Yeah. But I think this is pretty exciting for a lot of people. But I have two different opinions about it, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? When the news was released, I think since the last movie came out in 2011, to think of a new reboot coming out relatively soon, quickly, 12 years. I don't know when it actually will debut, but right now it's announced 12 years later from the last film. Yeah. A lot of that and being transitioned into a television show. That doesn't happen a lot unless you're a Stephen King movie that did terribly bad. And I said it because most of his movies did terribly bad, but they redid them for miniseries for him and they did really well. You know what I mean? It took a long time because most of his books are compact and they need to expand. Right. Same thing with Harry Potter, I would imagine. But it's just such a short turnaround. Yeah. And to have these characters, I speak now to how, maybe it'd be easier for the Harry Potter guys, but I speak now to how it's Solo. People rejected that when that was remade because they were used to Harrison Ford playing that role. I'm curious to see how this will affect the original, recasting these guys who are, I mean, he's
They
Harry
are that.
Potter.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? He's Harry Potter. It has been since 2001.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just going to be really interesting to see how they do that. Will audiences
respond to him?
Yeah, well, how they respond to that. Will audiences accept it, or you know what?
Yeah. It's I mean, speaking for myself, it's like a double-edged thing, you know. It's funny enough, by the way, how successful those films were. I think they averaged over $1 billion. If you take the sum and averaged them out, I think at one point they're like the three like richest people in. I know J.K.'s was the even richer than the Queen based off of the money she made off of the books, and Daniel Radcliffe obviously is cashing in pretty nicely. But yeah, it's bizarre to think of anybody besides him playing Harry, but at the same time, it's like, okay, it's going to be an 11-year-old, so maybe, you know, but also for someone who's read the books as well, there's so much in the books that was not in the films, but obviously because you only have like 2 hours to tell the movie, you know what I mean? And these books are
let's not joke ourselves. There were 3 hours.
Yeah,
but you still can't.
Well, the first
you can't
one,
capture all.
The first one's theatrical, I think, was like 2 hours 20 minutes. You know, but it's very hard to get a whole
you
book.
Can't do that.
Some of the bigger parts of the books and characters in the books never made an appearance in the movies. So I think by doing a series, it's very smart because they're going to be able to tell the full scale of the book, you know, throughout these shows, and have more modern technology with some of the magical effects, which will be cool to see. But it will be interesting to see if people can respond to a new set of trio, I guess, playing the head roles. But at the same time, I think it's cool because, like, you know, a lot of people my age have kids now, and now they'll have their Harry and Ron and Hermione, which will be cool.
Yeah.
I still, it's funny because I saw, I watch a YouTube show called The John Campea Show. He's really big into movie talk and stuff like that. But he was kind of thinking the same lines of me. I think after, because HBO Max did that 20 or 25th anniversary of the first movie, and they brought the original cast back and they talked about it and just the response to it. I would be willing to bet that if they could somehow get the original trilogy to come back for a movie or a trilogy, barring that it was good, it would, between the amount of Potterheads that are like my age and now they have kids with them,
right?
You could be looking at the first film to like kind of flirt with that 3 billion, like Endgame kind of numbers at the box, because it would be insane.
So are you talking about bringing the 3 original?
If you brought the original 3 back
so
for a movie.
For a movie, so continuing.
Oh yeah, if they would have kept
not
yeah,
back
right, yeah.
Bookending.
I thought that's what they would have done if they could have pulled it off.
Would you have rather seen? I got to ask you that. Would you have rather seen the continuation, or to your point? I get it, right? There is so much that can be told.
Yeah.
You can expand upon a lot of things. You know, show that maybe that weren't even in the book that might be interesting, like seeing the death of Harry Potter's family. Or,
right.
You know what I mean? Having an episode dedicated.
I'm getting it.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
No, yeah.
But you know what I mean? There's things that could be dedicated to that. But I just feel like, I guess, what would you rather see?
See, it's funny. I actually agree. I think starting with rebooting the books is actually a smart way to go in a series, because I think it brings the magic. Because I think the magic of the world, and I think why Hogwarts Legacy has gone so well, is the world is really encompassed in the castle. You know, and seeing that, being back in the game, I felt more back into the world than I did, you know, throughout like Fantastic Beasts, for example, where you're in New York, you're in the real world, and you just don't feel like you're in the wizarding world exactly. Like, it's wizarding, but you don't feel like it's the Harry Potter world. So I think by bringing the original books back into play into a series is smart. I hope they're doing spinoffs, though, that kind of go back to, I think you could have the show, but then have movies that are continuations of Dan and Rupert and Emma's Ron, Harry, and Hermione, which I think, you know, speaking for probably everyone my age, wants to see them, just like Han, Leia, and Luke for you. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the same. And because it's not something that's out of a book, you know, it would be a new tale. I think that would be a great way. Like I said, I really think it would it would definitely be in the $2 billion club, but it would have potential to be like in that Avatar realm.
Now let me ask you this: they actually do have the potential to do that. Everything you're saying, to do right. They could, while they're telling this reboot, maybe to continue those the movie tales of that, or could they? What do you think about them doing that with this rebooted cast? I mean, and that's another question.
Like when they go in and then fast forward to adults and then
you know what I mean? With this rebooted cast, would you be behind that, or would it still pay you a bit that you're not seeing? I would imagine it's probably paying you a bit to see the original trio.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's with anything. You're the ones you grew up with will always be yours. You know what I mean? So it's hard, but at the same time, you understand like the story must go on. You know, if you're telling the story, I mean, you can't have Dan play 11-year-old Harry again. So,
do you think? Let me ask you this question: do you think that they could be told? Like, let's say they're reboot, because there's really no clear details of how this.
Right. Yeah. This is very fresh.
So, what if? Would you be a fan of them taking, because the Rupert and Daniel and all those guys are so iconic as them, and that's who
they are. Them.
That's them and all that.
Yeah.
What if they told the story in a different way by just having that story, but maybe focusing on another group of characters that are within that? You know what I mean? So
maybe really like Draco or
well, I think that's the cool thing about this series, as that you will get more. Details
you're gonna get
Draco
more students
and all that stuff. But I'm saying, what if this? Who knows? I'm just saying, I'm looking at it in different ways. Like if this story is being told, but it's being told from the perspective of people who were more peripheral at that time, without maybe focusing on. It's another way, because of the fact, and these movies, I spoke at it in the beginning, these were well done films.
Oh, they still hold up.
Even though there were a lot of things that were left out, yes, and that could be argued. There was so much. What Goblet of Fire, I think, is what people really point to.
Yeah,
that there was a lot of stuff left on the
that and Order of the Phoenix, pretty much the last four. Because basically the first four, it's funny because the first four are more like, for not saying for kids, but they're more.
Well, they grow up with.
They are children in that. The second four are they're adults, not adults in age, but it takes a very more darker approach. So like I feel like if you were to start fresh, just you had never seen Harry Potter,
right,
you'd get a totally different feel for the second four than the first four. You know what I mean? So I see what you're saying. I think it would be really hard to do a Harry Potter series and have Harry Potter there and not focus on him.
Right. I mean, again, I'm just throwing it out.
I think it's okay to do the core books. That's great, and then have spinoffs, like have sequels. With Harry in movie form, and then do. There's been a lot of other movies that are stories that I think a lot of people that are fans would like to see. The Marauders is one that's. James Potter and Sirius Black and Remus Lupin and Peter Pettigrew, kind of the creator of the Marauders map, just kind of maybe when they were younger, a formation of the Order of the Phoenix the first time around, like the parents in when Voldemort was at power the first time. I think that would be a really interesting tale. We were kind of getting towards it at the end of Fantastic Beasts, the great duel between Grindelwald and Dumbledore. That would be cool to see. So there's a lot of and even Hogwarts Legacy, like the story within that. For a while before they announced the Harry Potter, they were saying there were maybe talks of adapting that into a series. Which would be set a couple 100 years before Harry Potter, which would also be cool because it's the Wizarding World is old. You can tell. Similar to Star Wars, like High Republic and Old Republic and stuff like it. Very, very similar how those two franchises, I think, actually align with each other.
Right.
In a lot of stories you can tell, but one of the things that will be interesting, and I think anybody will say, especially at the time they were made, they had like every A+++ actor in the history of British films in as the adult roles in those films, whether you're Richard Harris or you got of course you think of just blank out as soon as you have the name. Ray Fiennes is in there, and you have Michael Gambon and just every teacher. I mean, Alan Rickman is Snape. That to me, that's just as hard as the core three to try and duplicate.
Right.
I would like to see Adam Driver try it, but I'm just saying he would pull it off. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways you can go into it. But Ray, what are your thoughts of I know you've been to the theme parks you mentioned. What are your just involvement with that world, and just the thoughts of them doing a series based off of each book being its own season? What are your thoughts on that?
I can't really say because I never read the books, but I feel like I can't say it's a bad idea. I feel like it would make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not like the biggest Harry Potter fan, but I really have enjoyed the world and, the mysticality of it all. So
right.
I don't know. I'd probably end up watching it, and if I enjoyed it, I'd finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's so cool that this franchise has, I think I wish I could know. I think it was around like you said 97, 98.
Yeah.
Though, and what the impact. I mean, I remember when this film was being made, and I know they were really almost looking, and I know she fought hard.
Yes.
JK against it. They're looking to Americanize it.
Yep.
Especially I think when Spielberg at one point was directing
Yeah.
it, and they looking at Haley Joel Osment he was the it kid of the moment. You know what I mean? And he was going to be. They were looking at him as being that, and that was going to just change it. So
it would change
much.
everything. Yeah.
What it was, and I know she was really adamant about making everything British, rightfully so.
Yeah.
It's funny that it's being on HBO Max now because HBO Max is not shown in the UK.
Yeah.
At all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
That's true.
And so it's just interesting that that's happening, but yet the people who were not just them, everybody loves it.
Yeah.
But them who she fought so hard to make
Yeah.
sure the British people could have a part of it and have their it's them.
Yeah.
They can't see it.
Right.
They'll find a way. I'm sure they'll find a way.
I'm sure.
She'll make sure that it's going to be done and all of that. But this, talking about the franchise itself, I mean, people's tried to imitate this franchise.
Oh yeah,
so much. I mean, it made such a huge impact. Every young adult novel, all of a sudden, that was the new avenue, right? I mean, without Harry Potter, there would be no Twilight. However you feel about that, there'd be no Twilight. There'd be no Maze Runner. And then there'd be no Divergent.
Yep.
All of those series that they got movies.
Percy Jackson. Olympic. Yeah.
All of those, definitely that one took followed in the foot.
Yeah.
That one didn't find the success, but I guess
they all tried
also following in the.
You can't.
They're going on Disney Plus now. With a series. Yeah. We could actually do a whole episode of failed franchises.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there was a litany of them from that young adult phase that Hollywood went through.
Yeah.
But where do you think you brought up Fantastic Beasts? So this is one of those franchises. Talking about a failed franchise.
Yes.
That I talked about Divergent earlier. It's very rare in Hollywood. There's a lot of first movies that are planned for trilogies that don't
finish.
That fail to start. You know what I mean? You never get that second one. It's really rare where you'll get a part 1, 2, and 3, and then all of a sudden the part 4 doesn't happen.
Right.
And that happened with Divergent. They followed in Harry Potter's footsteps and tried to end or broke that last book up into 2 films, which they did. Everybody got the first half of that book, but everybody who was waiting for the fourth half or the second half didn't get that film, that fourth movie. I go back, say all that to say, look at Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not sure how many we're playing. We're 4 or
5.
Were there 5?
Yeah.
So now we get 3.
Yeah.
And it's pretty.
They're not. They've already scrapped
They're
it.
walking away. They're walking away. Warner Brothers is turning their back on the
Yeah.
franchise. Where did that go wrong?
I think it's a combination of a few things. Obviously, some of it not their fault. Like, you have Johnny Depp's situation that was in there. You have Ezra Miller's situation in there, and they were kind of the 2 headlines.
That's true.
I think where they went wrong, and me personally, like I thought they were fine. The second and third one were better than the first one. But as I mentioned before, to do films without Harry in them that are outside of Hogwarts as well, it didn't feel like it was in that world in a weird way. Like, especially the first one, because it was in New York. You were in the UK. You didn't see Hogwarts. It was just like a magic. So you just didn't. It didn't. Pun intended. It didn't have the magic that the Harry Potter franchise did, and it was hard to connect with. And I think because there were so many other movies and stories that us, the fans, would have rather have seen. It was just a very strange choice that's what they went with. Mm-hmm. Fantastic Beasts was basically just a textbook within the Harry and the students had. And even in the books, you hear the title of the book in the Fantastic Beasts by Newt Scamander. And that's the end that you hear about for the whole book. I mean,
You
nothing.
were planning to say, what happened to Newt?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Exactly. So it was just a very strange choice. And then it was it was hard to get into it. And then when they started to realize, and they even realized, oh, we need to bring more of the old magic back. So like the last one, you see Hogwarts, but I think at that point it was too late, you know, and the story was just kind of all over the place. It just didn't stick. I think people want to see Harry, you know, I think there's a certain magic to those books. And I think we should touch on that too. And I'd be curious because you were, you know, I was, you know, a kid, so I didn't really know beforehand, and they touch on in the special, people were talking about like the death of reading in physical books until these books came out. And it's so wild. Before or since, I've never been like an avid reader outside of comic books and graphic novels, but this was the only book I've ever seen ever. I mean, I've seen best-selling books. There's nothing like these books where people are waiting hours and hours and hours in line for the midnight release and just reading them through and waiting for the next one. And it sparked a whole, like you mentioned with the other Twilight, and I mean it sparked this huge thing. What was it like, you know, to just experience a book that sparked like that?
It had never, to your point, right? I'd never seen anything like it. People were waiting in line all the time, or you know, you hear about people waiting in lines for movies and stuff like that, or toys, or you know, whatever it might be, but never books.
Yeah,
it wasn't like it wasn't like books were drawing people. But yeah, I mean, there were people sleeping outside waiting to get that first copy of the latest Harry Potter, and that will never happen again.
No, I agree. I don't think it would even come close. Nothing.
That was the first, and so it holds that honor. And if somebody correct me, you know, correct us if we're wrong. That there was people waiting in line for the Hardy Boys at one point. I don't know, whatever it might be. I don't think that's the case, but if it's true, tell us, and we'll make be a culpa here on the show. But no, never, man. And I just so like I said, it made that cultural splash, and people have grown up with it now, and their children are reading it, and it's not going to go away. Obviously,
no.
It made such a huge splash, and I've said this already, but I'm reiterating, in just that short amount of time. You know, I mean, just a little over 20 years, and to have all of this stuff that's dedicated to it, and people, you know, just the fandom.
Well, it's wild. I mean, you go into like a Barnes and Noble or anything now. I mean, Harry Potter everywhere, you know, and like there's no movie out or book out, or and you go, you know, on audio, you go to the top 10, guarantee you a Harry Potter book's on there. Like it keeps on going, and especially with the theme parks. And I'd be curious to ask both of you this: what about that world do you think resonates with people so much for it to? Because to me, more than any other, as weird as it is, because it's like magic and whatever, but it's like it feels like it could be a real place. And maybe because they shot like the first movie, you see parts of like Oxford and you see these practical places, and you can go to these places. And then especially now with the theme parks, and you know, the brilliance of the guy who designed, you know, the theme park who's also the same guy who directed the set, by the way. You just feel like you're in the magical world, and it's insane. Like you feel like you're a part of it, and it's crazy.
Well, people are trying to duplicate that.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars is actually trying to duplicate that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were supposed to go. Originally, Harry Potter universe was supposed to be in Disney.
Right.
But J.K., being who she is, rightfully again, wanting to have creative control over those characters, Disney kind of wanted to make their own little
their own version,
big changes to the Harry Potter world and then have them there, right?
Yeah.
She fought against that. Universal got it. And to answer your question, it is because this is such a vivid new world created, and because she held true to that, you know what I mean, and fought and said this is how it's going to be, and they did such a fantastic job of making you immersed in that experience
and the world,
the
whole world,
in the whole world. You're immersed in that Harry Potter world, so you know, you get the butterbeer. You got me,
which is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, you know, it's just all this stuff. And again, Star Wars is trying to duplicate that now with Disney with the Galaxy.
Yeah,
you know, world.
Galaxy's Edge.
And you can see the differences that Disney has changed the Star Wars to.
You know what? It's funny you say it. It baffles me when people get their hands on something that's so amazing and beloved, but then try and change it.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a reason it's great. Like, leave it as it is, and yeah, I agree with that full-heartedly. Ray, do you have like a favorite thing about the world, or why do you think so many people, just resonate with this franchise so much?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it just is relatable for a lot of people, but I don't know. People have always felt like they wanted to be, whisked away into the magical world.
Yeah, waiting for their Hogwarts letter.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's either that, Star Wars, and Pokemon, it's like that kind of fantasy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For some people, they really like that. And I don't know. I've never been one of those people who liked it too much, but I see the fantasy in it, and I love it. I love all the magic. I love the staircases and the pictures changing, the eyes following you around. I don't know.
Which was brilliant. Those for just, I remember the first time seeing, it was one of the first movies that, I was just old enough where I wasn't a little kid anymore, but just being like, oh my, like enthralled with seeing the staircases move, seeing the castles, seeing goblins, and you're just like, it's wild. But at the same time, and I think, again, very similar to the Star Wars original trilogy, making it, even though it's in this fantasy world, it's really about the characters, and you can relate to like Luke. He's a farm boy who just wants to be able to go out and spread his wings and go on this adventure. Harry's like not a Superman like hero. He's like gets bullied and
lives under a staircase.
Right.
Yeah, he sucks with girls. Like, he's not like he's this
relatable.
And Ron's like an idiot, but and like funny, and him and Hermione are just she's such a powerful strong female character. It's there's just so many elements to it that I could talk about forever, but it's wild. What do you think as far as starting the world? Would you do it practically? Do you think it's going to be done more like the volume, like Mandalorian? I mean, we're getting very speculative here. If someone came to you, here's the keys to this. I mean, I don't envy the person who has to take on this task.
They're ruining. I brought this up earlier. They have this could taint.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what they've got.
It's a bold move.
They've got these perfect 8 films.
8 films. Yeah.
8 films there. That to reboot this and to really risk.
Yeah.
Mucking it up. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it is bold for them to do something like this.
Yeah.
I think to answer your question though, I think they would. I see them almost going that route of the Star Wars. When you talked about the volume and all that stuff, or those Disney. I see them kind of going that route. What do you think? I mean,
I don't know.
This is a big undertaking.
I think it's a good. I think you need to do the combo. I think making it feel like the original movie's enough. It's hard. There's so much more in the books that have not been seen yet, and that's really exciting to me because there's so many like important things to the books that we never had to see. So that part I try and focus on. I just hope that whoever does it stays true to the book, and I would be very surprised if JK would sign off on this if they weren't, just judging off her track record. Anything that they've done in that universe has been pretty strict down to the books, and now that they're adapting the books in their entirety, I would imagine they're going to be pretty sturdy on that. And it wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if they use, maybe not all, but I think a lot of people that were on that original set, in some form of capacity will probably be back at some point, in some way.
Yeah.
Which is funny because all that Star Wars, Harry Potter, the crew moved right into the new Star Wars trilogy because they filmed it in the same place, and now it'd be kind of funny to go back. You know what I mean?
I mean, it is. I mean, like I said, I envy people like you who got to. And another thing I think really made the impact of Harry Potter really a big splash is that for Star Wars we had 3 movies. And then we had 3 movies for a long time.
Yeah, long time.
You know what I mean? Without anything else besides these little Ewok adventures that would pop up every now and then.
Yeah.
Throughout the years. But then Harry Potter, you guys got to have one. And my
whole childhood was a new movie.
Every 18 months almost.
Yeah, well, smartly they filled them back to back because they knew that the kids would outgrow the roles if they didn't go back. So they had. everything. They had like a school for the kids. They would do. I mean, right on. I think it's Leavesden is the name of the place where they shot all of them. And that was their life. Was on that set within their school, their friendships, and all of that. So. Yeah, to your point, I mean, it seemed like 2 years at the max, there was a new movie coming out, and and it was weird after that last one. You're just like,
right?
This is it. Like I didn't really remember a world prior before, and it's like now it's over. I mean, it's just like wow.
Yeah, they pumped out those 8 films in 10 years.
Yeah,
in that 10-year time frame, you guys were getting a movie.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was something too. You know what I mean? To be able to get that, and then to even get the books. I mean, you guys were getting
books
while the movies were coming out, the later books and stuff like that. So it was really kind of
so it was funny with
1-2 punch that was happening.
So I think the second book was out. I think she was working on the third when the first movie came out, but I always never got ahead of the movies because I didn't want to know,
right?
And then I, obviously listened to the audio book quite a bit.
So would you read the movies first? I mean,
read the movies?
Well, I know, right? Would you read those movies
with
first?
Subtitles? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Would you watch the movies first and then read the books?
No.
Oh, no, you would.
No.
Okay.
I think if you read the books, I'm not like a huge like novel. There's not a single bad Harry Potter movie. Like I love all of them. The books smoke the movies because there's just so much more depth to it. And the books are just so good. I would have to go with the book, especially if you really want to like enthrall yourself into that world. I mean, it's so deep and their characters are so well written. And if you like audiobooks, the guy who does the audio, I mean, he does the voices of every character and he is so good. And you can just listen to it, and it's that's the best way for me because you're kind of getting a little bit of both because it feels like at least like a screenplay or something.
Right.
So yeah, I am glad they're not doing the play. I saw the play, and I like the play, but I wouldn't want to see that in the movie. That's not how because it was more Last Jedi-ish with Harry, like he's there, but like he's not like in it that much. You know what I mean? They're kind of like. The core of the characters are the main are his son and Draco's son. And it's a great show. I highly recommend. They do a great job of like the atmosphere is very magical and they serve butterbeer, which is always a plus. But yeah, I am glad they're not going. I think it's a great as the play,
Yeah. Well, with the show, I mean, you could focus on. Can't you have like a whole episode on like Tom Riddle?
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could just really focus on.
That'd be a great series too.
Of things, right?
To like just watch his ascent, into that. That would be great. Have you been to the theme parks?
I have not been to the theme park.
Okay. No. It's just funny how like each piece of the books, the theme, like they all connect and kind of make each stronger. You know what I mean? In their own respective ways. Do you know what house you are?
I want to go with Gryffindor.
Okay. Got a Gryffindor, Ray? You gonna Slytherin?
Ravenclaw.
Oh, Ravenclaw. There you go. I have to go with Hufflepuff. Do you have a favorite character?
I guess Snape. Honestly, I love Professor Snape.
Snape is the man.
I'll tell you who I don't like: Dobby.
I
was.
And you were happy to see his demise. No, I'm just.
Honestly, Lee. Bellatrix is
deep,
really cool too. Not because she kills Dobby, but she's just fun.
Villains are always
Bellatrix.
fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think with the series we're gonna get really more in depth.
More depth of them.
A whole lot more.
Yeah.
And their perspective on things and things like that. Do you think they'll take the avenue of these days? There's villains always have a. There's always the villain's always a reason. I'm just trying to do good. I mean, I might kill half the people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's always that perspective.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll give that to maybe? I mean, did he have that? That's not remembering right now. Or was he just pure evil?
It's interesting.
He just wants to dominate
because it goes back to the Slytherin house, which truly believes like you have to be pure blood to be able to even have a right to go to that school. And he's the ancestor, and he believes like in pure bloods and. If you're not pure blood, like I'm taking you out, and he's trying to find immortality. So he didn't really they pretty much set his intent, and it's so clear that I don't think they can steer away from because that's who he is. That's what he fuels him. and Harry just always beats him. But I'm more intrigued by seeing Bellatrix and like Lucius Malfoy and like the Death Eaters, like why they follow him,
right?
And I hope they explore that a little deeper. Like you see them follow him in the movies, but they don't really go deep into like why and like when he's gone, like what are they still doing like in the shadows? You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff I think they can really dig more into that they do in the books. You know, kind of doing this slow build it, because in the movies, you know, you hear how bad things were, but they don't really like explain stuff. Whereas I think with the series, you'll be able to like explore or show it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing will be cool. And then like a relationship like Sirius Black, you know, a lot of people like. I'll get to like what your favorite is the movies and stuff, but like Prisoner of Azkaban is a lot of people's favorite book or movie. And Sirius is typically one of the favorite characters. He's one of mine because he's interesting, and it's very actually Snape is as well for that exact reason. He's like dual-sided, and you're like meant to think he's one way, and JK is very good at writing this. You're like, oh, this guy's a villain or a bad guy and then flip. Oh no, he's not.
That's exactly what was Sirius, right?
It's exactly how it was.
Because Gary Oldman, we forgot to mention him.
Oh, and how great it was he?
As that character, and that's one of mine too, because you get that little. That duality.
Well, the beautiful part of that is too with Remus Lupin too is like he's this super nice guy and he's mentoring Harry and he cares about, but he's a monster. He's a werewolf, you know. And then you see him turn into a werewolf, and you know he's trying to kill Harry, and then the guy you think's trying to kill Harry the whole time ends up being the most compassionate, loving person of Harry, and he's the one who kind of steps in and saves him. So I remember reading that and being like, wait, what? Like, what? I mean, this is crazy. And just the beautiful storytelling in that, you know. So those kind of relationships, like the private meetings between Harry and Sirius or Lupin, I think will be very, very more fleshed out, and that kind of stuff I think will be great if they do it right, you know. And again, just please stick to the books because you'll nail it. If so, it's just going to be interesting, like casting wise, you know, like Dumbledore and like I had some. Well, I like Jude Law as Dumbledore. I gotta say, if they kept him as Dumbledore, I'd be totally okay with that. He's great. So although he's going to be a lot older. Yeah.
You liked his. Well, he would have to be a lot older.
Yeah.
But you liked.
He did great.
You thought he did. That's one standout. Not bad.
And I thought the acting was great. Actually, even in Fantastic Beasts, other than Ezra Miller, his character was just weird. But like Eddie Redmayne is a fantastic actor.
Yes.
You know, and he played Newt fantastically. Well,
didn't care about him. No.
Yeah, and Johnny Depp was great as. So it is funny because in the movies, the way they're portrayed, Grindelwald actually is a better villain than Voldemort is, in my opinion, in the movies because they flesh him out and he's very complex. It's not just like, oh, here he is and now he's trying to kill Harry. You know what I mean? And then Mads Mikkelsen played him, and to me, he's like one of the best villain actors in the world. So he brought it up to another notch. And that's the one I was very excited to see him like get to be Grindelwald and do that duel. And now we're not going to see it.
Right.
So, that was the one thing at Fantastic Beasts I was actually looking forward to, you know, and now they're not doing it. But yeah, the stories of that's going to be fantastic. My favorite book is Prisoner of Azkaban, and then I think the first one, just because it was the first and the world building of that. Of the movies you've seen, do you have a favorite so far?
I would say, not to piggyback off of you, but I also liked Goblet. I did like that one, but because I liked Sirius, like Gary Oldman, also in anything he does really.
Oh yeah, we
did a great job in that because of the surprise where you find out, oh, it wasn't him. You know what I mean? Anyway. Goblet of Fire, I think, is also a better one. So I think I mentioned that earlier. I think of any of them, from what I understand, that would be the one that would be more fleshed out.
Oh my gosh, that book was a monster.
Yeah, really get into as well. So I mean, there's so many that I think for me, not reading the book to where I can be like, there'll be enough new stuff in there. I think.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, to where it keeps my interest or what have you. So
for sure. What about you, Ray? Have you read any of the books or seen the movies? Do you have a favorite?
I'd say Goblet of Fire as well.
Yeah.
That one's just cool.
It's
I
got
haven't read any books though.
Yeah, the adventure with like the dragons and just the tournament itself, and it brings other schools in, so you get that. I think it'll be.
And it has a crossover with the vampire from
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, Rip. Yeah.
And
Don't talk about my boy Cedric.
Too. It's a multiple crossover.
Cedric, Batman's a Hufflepuff.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. He is. We're Hufflepuffs. Yeah. No. It actually is funny how many people you didn't realize were in Harry Potter, and then and you're like, oh, they were an extra in Harry Potter, and they talk about it. Hearing Robert talk about it is really funny because you get oh my gosh. Also, just like Mad-Eye Moody's another great character in there. The smaller roles that are also. Not often do you get smaller roles and A-list actors playing them,
right?
But people just wanted to be in those movies, and I don't think that'll be duplicated again.
No,
although it might in the show because people are going to want to play that.
They're going to have to. I feel like they will do that.
You have to.
You know what I mean? That'll be the new up and comers in the British, British actors, all UK actors.
Yeah.
But it'll be them.
Do you think they'll? This is a 2-part question because I talked about me wanting to see the original cast back. I think part of why, and they could have already tried. I don't know if Dan would want to go back into that again. Him especially, just because he was so famous for Harry, and he's kind of been away from it enough now that he's done other things, and I'm sure. Obviously he still gets swamped everywhere he goes, but not to the extreme of when it's happening. Do you think? The reason they're going this route is maybe one of the maybe Emma Watson too. Rupert's kind of like he just did the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Knock at the Cabin Door.
He's not as
prominent. He's working. He's definitely working.
He's working.
He's getting some great roles, working with some great directors, M. Night Shyamalan, as you said, and also doing the show Servant that he does with him too.
Yeah.
And I think Daniel has done a really good job of not falling into that Harry Potter typecast role.
No, he's done extreme other things.
Yes, he has.
And bravo to him.
Done right to feel like at this point in his career, it'd be relatively safe for him
to go back
and portray him.
And be okay.
It'd be one thing if he'd been struggling and you saw him doing some voiceovers somewhere or whatever. You know what I mean? And then he wasn't doing what he's saying, and then but I think he's done enough to where it wouldn't be such a down or hardship for him to come back and do it. And Emma and Rupert, I think Emma also has done enough things to where she's separated.
I gotta say, it was hard wrapping around her as Belle because I'm like, you're Hermione, man.
Right.
But for me, I was like, nope, you're Hermione. It's the same for Harry. I'm just like, you're Harry.
Yeah, I think it might have been. If anybody, I would feel like maybe it would be her.
Yeah,
who would say
if
I had to speculate.
I agree
that she would be like, you know what I mean? That she's just not even just happier with where she is in life.
Yeah.
I don't even think she's working that much in film these days.
She's like very smart. She went to Brown.
Yeah,
I think she does a lot of like charity stuff, and she's got a lot of projects. So yeah, I would agree. I think of the 3, she would be the hardest. But I think it's one of those, if one signed on, the other 2 would be like, okay,
because they're relative.
You don't want to be the one.
Good.
Yeah, and you especially in the special, and I think that special might have helped them. I think maybe just like being back in there and talking it, and they even said they're like, man, it's really hard not to just like slip back into like the memories of that's literally their whole childhood was there. So it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't surprise. I can tell you if that happens, the internet will explode if they announce like a true Harry Potter sequel. Would that be something you would want to see?
Yeah, I would actually, because I actually saw Chamber of Secrets. No, wait, that's the first one.
Chamber of Secrets is the second one. Yeah.
Oh wait, what's the first?
Sorcerer's Stone.
Sorcerer's Stone, but
Philosopher's Stone. Yeah. Depending on what country. Right?
Exactly right. Yeah. That was one of the changes they made here in the U.S. But I will say, at that point in my life when I saw it, it was hard for me to jump into it because it was, I think, a 10-year-old, whatever, portraying him. You know what I mean? I think that's just where, I think now it would be different. But where I was at that point, it was just, I couldn't really get into the film as much. But as they went on, right, and as they got older, and that's what I've been told my kids.
And it gets darker and darker.
It gets darker and darker. And that's what I've been told my kids, because for whatever reason, because I was actually really excited. I was like, my 2 kids, I'm going to be able to now really jump on the Harry Potter bandwagon with them. They are Harry Potter adverse for whatever
You just got to take them to the theme park and they'll be hooked.
They might be. And then maybe that'll be the hook that I say, you can't watch the movies until we, or no, you
can't go to the park.
Can't go to the Universal Studios until you watch the park, to watch the movies. But for some reason, they've just been that. I forgot where I was going with that.
Adverse?
But,
yeah.
Yeah.
But as adults, I think you'll...
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. I think yes, I would totally want to be able to watch newer one.
Yeah, and just see where they are. What have they been doing? How do they deal with all... Yeah, I think... and the fact that they can make something their own, you know... get the House of Dragon people to write it, or the Last of Us people to drive it.
Right.
You know, get a storyteller like that.
Now, would you want to see their story retold in a streaming or a film?
I don't care. You give it to me in any form or capacity, I will watch it.
Yeah.
I would. I think you would have to do it as a movie because it would be. I mean, I'm not one of those people that are like, oh, do it for a cat. Like, there's cash grabs, and then there's like, you're making billions and billions of dollars cash grab, and that is a. It would flirt with $3 billion. I mean, it would easily be right top 10. I wouldn't be surprised to be flirting with that top 3 because you'd have already $1 billion franchise, and then now all the kids that were the ones who were dying to see it are now adults, and we have people we can bring to it.
Yeah,
I mean, it would do just gangbusters, especially if it was good,
right?
You know. So,
is there a particular if you fan fiction?
Yeah,
is there a story that you've had that you would like to see continued on, from all the different things that maybe you've read or speculated?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think usually they did that quick thing of like if you remember after the last one, they do like 17 years later and you see where they're at. So
dropping their kids
I
off.
think it's I think a combination of that. So from like the play, Hermione's the Minister of Magic. She's married to Ron. Harry's an aura, so he's a dark wizard catcher, but he's like living with this thing that I think is relatable is like you peak in high school. Like he was the chosen one. He did what he was supposed to do in high school. So like, how does he live with that? How does he come down from that and be able to move? And he really struggles. And I think that could be a really interesting thing to focus on his mental state of like, how do you deal with being that person and going through this in your past, but still try and, be a parent and grow forward, but also like have mysteries of him chasing dark wizards and Ron is with him and Hermione, and maybe have like a new corruption come in and how do they deal with it or something like, I don't know. But, I would like to see, and it's funny. It pisses me off because there's a deleted scene in the last movie, and it's in the books, but Draco in the last movie, Harry saves him, in the room of requirement, and when Harry's playing dead in Hagrid's arms and eventually comes to fight Voldemort at the end, Draco's actually the one who runs out and tosses him his wand to help him. Mm-hmm. And they kind of have this full circle moment of they've hated each other, but they found this like new respect for each other. And then as they grow older, because Draco I don't want to be a part of this dark stuff anymore. Like that was my parents. And like, he has this aha moment and he's trying to like redeem himself and be their friend. So it'd be kind of funny to see, funny in a good way, to see Draco in there with Harry and they have like this bitterness to each other, but also like they're trying to
found respect,
and they're adults now. So it's like, how do we and that's part of the cursed child is Draco's best son and Harry's son are best friends. And like, how do they deal with that? So yeah, I think seeing like stuff like that would be really cool. And going back into that world would be really, really exciting. I think you could tell a cool story with that. But I'm down for anything in that world. I really would. So it'll be interesting to see. Let us know what you guys think. What projects would you want to see out of the Harry Potter franchise? What is your Hogwarts house? Let us know everything. Like, let's bring on the magical questions. We'd love to know. And check us out. Thank you, Nomadic State of Mind, again for sponsoring this episode.
Indeed.
You can check out their awesome swag, especially as we get towards summer and beach season. And let us know, any Harry Potter questions you might have, comments. We really appreciate any of the feedback. So, Lee, it's been magical to talk with you, my friend.
Indeed, it has.
I hope all of you snuggle with your muggles, and we'll catch you next time.
Later.